Wow, Pushyamitra, you've got quite some legacy to live up to. Two wonderful.
Thank you, Didi.
But I think you will do a great job. And it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to introduce Pushyamitra Joshi. He is the hope of the future. He's the young guy who has done some serious research, the textile traditions of India, and he's going to talk about it. He is a first generation entrepreneur and he's an expert in block printing using natural dyes. He comes from a background in marketing, strangely enough. He's worked on diverse portfolios like banking products, education, and arts and crafts. He holds a PhD in different hand block print techniques of India. He has studied traditional methods of mud resist block printing like Ajrak, Bagh, Dabu, and Nandana, which is still practiced by rural craftsmen in India today. It helped him to understand and identify the problems in marketing of rural handicraft products. And he started his own venture called EcoFab, which basically deals with eco-clothing for healthy living. His work with block printing and handloom involves rare combination of traditional motifs and innovation in terms of using natural dyes as well as threads. He works with both traditional motifs as well as contemporary motifs in block printing using fully natural dyes that he extracts from plants and minerals. As Sonalji said, talked about turmeric, about pomegranate, about harda, and all of that Pushyamitra is actually experimenting with, and he's trying to dye his clothes with the same kind of dyes. So it is a technique which is not dyed, it is still exists in India, the traditional technique of natural dyes. He has innovated a new block printing technique with Tarapur printers of Madhya Pradesh, now known as the Puru print. He will talk to us about history of natural dyes and block printing in India, how it evolved, and what is the way ahead. Over to you, Pushyamitra.
Thank you and namaste to all. अभी मेरी हालत ऐसी हो रही है कि एक पंडिता राग ललित बजाकर चली गई, दूसरे पंडिता ने भैरवी बजा ली और मेरे लिए एक बिल्कुल नया स्टेज है. तो I will try my best to talk about what I have learned from the history. And namaste to all, and thank you Shefali Didi and Indic Academy for giving me this opportunity to talk about history of natural dyes, especially in India, because India was the biggest exporter of natural dyes and natural dye textiles and natural dyes specifically since 5,000 years. So first, I will start with some points to remember. Like, did you know India knows how to dye with madder 4,500 years ago without alum? Alum discovered in the 9th century. So I will give you just a brief about what is alum and how natural dyes is, works. So every natural dye requires some kind of mordant. In Hindi, mordant is rangabandha or rangabandhana, which is a kind of binder. So this binder helps natural dyes to absorb the fabric. Fabric is treated with some kind of mordant and then it is dyed with natural dyes. So alum is one of that. And before alum, alum discovered in 9th century, and we are talking about 4,000, 5,000 years ago, where madder was one of the major natural dye which was used in dyeing. So how our ancestors, how much, science they know about chemistry, they know about natural dyes. It is exemplary to know about it. And did you know India was the biggest exporter of best quality of natural dyes and natural dye textiles till 18th century. And after that, in 19th century, after invention of synthetic dyes, we lost our tradition also, and we lost our ranking in the world also. Then all Indian origin natural dyes, whether it's plant-based or mineral-based or animal-based, all were used as herb in Ayurveda. We lost most of the written literature and documentation due to constant attacks and burning of libraries. You must have heard about the burning of libraries of Nalanda Vishwavidyalaya. And then traditional dyers, block printers relied more on oral traditions because they are actually doing it and they transfer their knowledge to their next generation. So there were no documentation was done in past by the dyers themselves. It was done by the researchers basically. And due to introduction of synthetic dyes, we lost our age-old tradition of using natural dyes in textile, especially handcrafted textiles. Then our presentation will flow like we will talk about natural dyes and its types, then history of natural dyes in traditional textiles, and history of hand block painting, and then question answer session will follow. So first of all, what is natural and herbal dye? It is simple that what is available in nature, we go through we process something and we follow some steps, we follow some process to extract that natural pigment from the natural dye. But in Indian context, if we talk about, so all the natural dyes are actually herbal dyes. There is something herbal importance mentioned in Ayurveda, whatever our ancestors or our forefathers were using those natural dyes in dyeing the fabrics. Then those natural dyes are classified into three categories broadly: plant-based, animal-based, and mineral-based. Then herbal dyes are having healing properties, we already discussed. Then it is good for skin and environment. And it does not contaminate water. The water which is used in preparing natural dyes, you can use it watering the plants. Then the raw material, the material which is used in solid waste of that natural dye, you can use it for biofertilizer as a raw material. Then these are the three types of broad categories of natural dyes. In plant-based, again it is categorized into two things. One is one hot dye preparation using as a hot dye. Madder and Parijat flower is one of them. Sonalji already mentioned about it. And in cold dyes, there is an indigo leaves which is used to extract the some preparation by adding lime into it, and it is get fermented and then it is ready for dyeing. And pomegranate peel, it is used as a hot dye also, and it is used as a cold dye also. But in cold, using it as a cold dye gives you much better color. Then in mineral-based dyes, ochre and from iron ore and azurite color from copper mineral were used in the past. Today, it's not easily available, and because of costing, it's not used. But mineral-based mordants like alum, that is fitkari in Hindi, and iron rust water is used as a mordant, not as a dye. If I talk about animal-based, so lake and cow urine were mentioned in the Atharva Ved, the use of lake, and lake is basically secrets of a lecifer insect, and cochineal is basically belongs to Mexico and Peru. It's not used here. It is an insect which is killed in the process, and then dyer get the red color out of it. And cow urine we will discuss in the next slide. Then these two samples we created, for the show, that this is a madder root dyed fabric. You can see the cotton fabric, and this is a block printed dupatta, cotton silk dupatta over dyed with parijat flower. So we get the bright yellow color. Then if we talk about history of dyes, so use of natural vegetable dye like use of manjit, that is madder roots, indigo, that is neel, safflower, that is kusuma flower. And somebody asked the question from Sonalji that we don't have genda, it's not of Indian origin, but when she talk about genda, it's a safflower, that flower which is known as kusuma. It is similar to genda. So it was used during Atharvaved times. Lodra, lake, a lake that is animal-based dye, and haridra, that is turmeric, mentioned in Atharvaved. And did you know Rigved mentioned even use of cow urine as a dye to make fabric fire resistant? Yes, you heard it right. It was basically made. This dyed fabric was it was made for the rishis, those who will perform yagnas for months. So the process was, preparing this cow urine dyed was that a virgin cow was fed with mango leaves and water for a day, and next day early morning the first urine was collected, and then it is used for dyeing those fabrics. In Ramayana also, I got some references like red, yellow, and saffron color fabric mentioned frequently. When Ravana goes to abduct Ma Sita, he was wearing a gerua, that is saffron color fabric, and Ma Sita was wearing a yellow color koshia sari, that means a silk sari, and at the time of abduction. So it is already mentioned in Ramayana, different colors were used at that time, and there were no invention of synthetic dyes were there. So there must be some natural dye were used in dyeing those fabrics. And did you know fragments of natural dyed coarse cotton fabric found during excavation of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro sites dates back 3000 BC. And you will be surprised to know that those Manjishta dyed fabric got a very bright red color, and because they have used something like alum, but not alum, because alum was discovered in 9th century. So it is really very interesting to know that what kind of what kind of chemical, what kind of binding agent they use. In also already Sucheta ji talks about the Kautilya's Arthashastra. So there are mention of different natural dyes were used at that time, and for coloring also. So two things I got from there, that for red color, different shades, they use Padma Rakta for color like blue, red lotus, and Shuddha Rakta, which was used for light colored gray fabric. So this is one of the product we recreated using old knowledge, and through our experimentation we use madder, because today in block printing or even in dyeing, plain dyeing also, for red color synthetic alizarin is used, because it discovered in 1862 in lab by German scientist. So in early 19th century or late 19th century, 20th century, our started using this synthetic dyes because of the pricing, one, and second because of the less preparation, because madder requires a extra preparation to get that bright red color. Then 500 BC to 3rd century AD, safflower, indigo, that is Neil, used as a plant-based dyes, and cow urine used as an animal-based dyes. And one researcher also found in 1910, the formula of cow urine, how it has been used by the dyers of Muzaffarnagar. Then also Geruka, that is Geru, and as a red ochre, you can see the use of this in Bhimbetka caves, and Khanjana, that is carbon black, were used as a natural based dyes. Then 3rd century AD to 7th century, red dyes were considered as a prized possession. It was extracted from different plant-based dyes like Kampilka, which is also known as Mallotus philippinensis, Patanga, that is sapanwood, and from mineral animal extracts like Indragopal, something like insect were used. And if I talk about Patanga, that is sapanwood, is still people from Kerala use the wood chips of this as a drinking water for a better stomach. So if if you talk about any natural dye used in India or having herbal importance, unlike what is used in the West, because they go for the coloring, and some mollusks they use are having very harmful effect on the skin. So if you talk about our Indian origin dyes, they all are safe for skin and even heal the skin. And then some black dye were also introduced. Some new sources for black dyes were introduced in this period, like using marablan, iron rust, and pipala bark to get the black color. In 9th century onwards, use of alum as a mordant fixation agent was discovered for red dyeing especially. And 12th to 13th century, when Sant Namdev ji influenced dyeing and block printing industry, Sant Namdev ji was a very famous saint of India, and he was known for his tailoring skills, but he was also expert in dyeing and printing too. And you will be surprised to know, still block printers from Rajasthan and Tarapur in Madhya Pradesh, they manage with Sant Namdev ji. Then during Mughal period, if I talk about 15th to 18th century, accounts for elaboration in printing work and 32 different processes of plain dyeing were documented in this period. It is mentioned in Nuskha Khulasatul Mujarrabat, and this is basically a medicinal book, but in some pages this mentioning about these natural dyes and processes is there. And in the same book, it is also mentioned that during Mughal period, like us today, emphasis on cost reduction was also there, and it is reflected in documents, especially use of cassia tora seeds as alternative of indigo to get blue color. Cassia tora in our local language in Madhya Pradesh is known as puada or chirota, And if you have read, newspaper, Indian newspaper some days ago, even China is also eyeing on this plant to and seeing it as a remedy of COVID-19. And interestingly, documentation by George Rocks during 17th century indicates use of all, that is Morinda tinctoria roots, were used as a cost-effective alternative to madder roots to get red color in block printing, especially in North India. And you will be surprised to know that today the situation is completely reverse. Today you can get madder roots easily, but you can't get this Morinda tinctoria roots easily. And the only cluster which is using Morinda tinctoria roots to get red color or orange color is Kotpad in Odisha. And those Kotpad sarees, if you have seen those Kotpad sarees, there is a cotton core sarees that cost around, starting range is 6,000 to 5, onwards, depending upon the use of motif and color. So you can see how, time to time, preferences change, and because of availability, the importance of dyes also depend on that. So we got some Morinda tinctoria roots nearby forest, and we collected and we just recreated this in block printing. So we got this orangey shade in our experiment. Unlike it's mentioned that red color. Then natural dyes were used in traditional textiles since long. In handloom khadi, there were no choice except natural dyes, and they have a few shades like yellow, red, blue. Those were used. And in hand painting traditions, if you see from Vrathapani in Srikalahasti, the actual name was Vrathapani, but because of Persian influence, it becomes Kalamkari. But actual name was Vrathapani because tulika was used, tulika means pen, was used to draw the different drawings. And, one Kathakar was there. He was elaborating the itihasas of India, our own ancestors. And then another Chitrakattis was a person who is a drawing artist. He will draw all narratives which Kathakar is narrating. And then that becomes a 60, 70 years ago, that becomes a wearable art. So today Kalamkari sarees are very famous, but basically it was used to paint, for wall hanging. And then we have a Pattachitra tradition of Odisha and Bengal where natural dyes were used in past. But today, because of, variety of colors were used, they all are synthetic. Then we have one of the oldest tradition of Madhubani, Mithila painting in Madhubani district of in Bihar. So they all were using natural dyes initially. And if you go to Rajasthan, you will find Pichwai. And if you go to Gujarat, you will find Matani Pachadi. All these were hand painting traditions. Now today, because of more demand, they becomes a wearable art. But if you want to see a natural dyed sample that how our ancestors did beautifully, so you can visit Sanjay Sharma Memorial Museum just opposite Jal Mahal in Jaipur. You will find they have curated one 18th century Pichwai painting which is completely natural dyed. Now I will come to hand block printing. So there are so many traditions of hand block printing still exist in India, but today very less are using, or nobody is using actually, except a few natural colors. All are using synthetic dyes because of its invention in late 18th, 19th century, and then the use and because of the costing, but still some uses natural dyes a bit. But those block printings were initially, the Ajrak is 5,000-year-old block printing technique. So all natural dyes were used in that block printing technique. And in this representation, I will elaborate about 3 block printing techniques because those were not associated with any geographical area because of their work, because of their, name situated because of their process. So first I will talk about, this Ajrak. Ajrak is, one statue found in 4,500 years ago. Idol was found which is wearing a scarf like, something like a scarf and having motif of Ajrak print. In Ajrak print, initially 11 to 12 motifs are used, which are having geometrical patterns. They seldom use plant motifs or animal motifs. In Ajrak print, 4 colors red from madder roots, black from myrobalan plus rust, iron rust, and yellow from pomegranate peel plus turmeric, and blue from indigo were used in the past. And do you know 3rd century old fabric found in Syria have a stamp of Rajasthan prints? Just like this. This is a recent purchase of mine from Jaipur, from Bagru in near Jaipur. So this kind of stamp were, printed on the fabric, so one can identify that from whom he has purchased this fabric. So in case of any problem, that trader can, contact back those block printer. Then Adakkam word used for block printing are today known as Pedana block print kalamkari and Machilipatnam block print kalamkari. Adakkam is a Telugu word which means dyeing and printing. But with the influence of Persian Persian Sultanate, it becomes a kalamkari because in that area from Andhra Pradesh to Tamil Nadu, this Prathapani kalamkari art were very much prevalent at that time, along with this block printing. So with the they influenced the local culture and wording. So Adakkam becomes kalamkari, and this is still used for block printing. But actually, kalamkari is where the pen is used, but not blocks. So Adakkam is the original name of that block printing technique, today known as Pedana and Machilipatnam block print kalamkari. Then Adakkam was also known as chintz by Britishers, and it was exported to European countries during 16th to 18th century. And this is one of the sample how it has been printed. They even discovered the way to print indigo on the fabric. Generally, indigo is used as a dye, not as a printing material. Now I will talk about Ajrak. There are 3 theories behind Ajrak block printing. One theory says that some researchers found that it came from a Sanskrit word Ajrat, which means does not fade or decay. And with my little experience and observation, I can say that it really suits, this name really suits to the name behind Ajrak, because if you see any fabric which is dyed with indigo, and indigo is the only natural dye which is not absorbed by the fabric or threads. It is, it is on the upper side of the fabric, or it's absorbed. It does not absorb by the fabric actually. It is on the upper side of the fabric or thread. So after every wash, it will get bleed and get faded. But in Ajrak process, it is first printed and then dyed with indigo, and then again it is boiled in a alizarin solution, and previously it was dyed with madder. So in that boiling process, the indigo got fixed on the fabric. So because of that, this Ajrak name suits to that block printing technique, which does not fade or decay. Then we come to know from another, one of the block printing legend of Ajrak, Ranamalji Khatri. After my meeting with him, my interview with him, he told me that when when Sindh was a part of Akhand Bharat, today after after independence, we got independence, and it is divided into Pakistan and Bharat. Now Sindh is in Pakistan, Sindh province in Pakistan. So he came from Sindh Pran to Badameri in Rajasthan. So he says that his ancestors were involved in Ajrak block printing, and 2,500 years ago, when we have a trade relation with Mesopotamia and Arabic Peninsula, so tradesmen were coming to Sindh Prant for trades frequently, and first time when they saw this block printed fabric lied on the earth, and it is having all geometrical patterns like this in this, you can see in this picture. So this, by seeing this geometrical pattern and blue color in the background, one tradesman instantly calls it, oh, ye to Ajrak hai, oh, this is Ajrak, which means in Arabic language, it means blue or sky, because of its geometrical patterns like moon, like sun and stars, and then the blue color penetrated in the background. Then third theory says that, which is propounded by another legendary block printer, Ajrak block printer, Ismailji Khatri from Ajrakpur, Gujarat. He says that Ajrak literally means Aaj hi Rakh, means keep it for today, because Ajrak is a 16-step process and each process requires one full day to perform, or you need to, you can't do 2 steps in a day. If one step you performed and it is performed before the time, you have to keep fabric for a whole day and next will be performed next day. So literally, you know, Aaj becomes Ajrak. And for men only, yes, you heard it right. The real Ajrak was meant for men only, and it was the lungis and men's shawl were printed initially, and it was printed on both the sides. Because of all these geometrical patterns, it was you know, easy for them to print on the both sides. But today it's not that easy. Today only one side is printed, and it is more demanded by the women than a man today. Addakam, which we already talked about Addakam, that it's a block printing technique performed by the block printers of Andhra Pradesh and Sabam area. And it becomes a kalamkari during 15th to 16th century after Persian ruler influence. It is one of the most prominent style of block printing, which you know, madder, pomegranate peel, iron rust, and indigo were used in printing, not only in dyeing. Madder were used for dyeing, but the pomegranate peel, they have you know, developed a technique to print the pomegranate peel, which is not done by any other block printers in India. And indigo they also printing. So this is one of the unique block printing style which we have. Today, 2 major block printing centers are left in this block printing technique, are Patna, and it is often called block print kalamkari, but it is not actually kalamkari, it's the block printing technique. But they got GI in the name, geographical indication in the name, block print kalamkari individually. And now I will talk about Nandna block printing, which is not known by many, and it was restricted to Tarapur village in Madhya Pradesh only. And it is a 400 years old block printing technique as told by the block printers today, but we have no written evidence that how old it is, but we can, you know, we can say that it can be a 400 years old technique. And Nandna derived from the Hindi word Nand, which means a pot. So in this block printing technique, 2 times different pots are used, so it becomes adjective Nandana. One pot is used while printing with alum, so that alum water is kept in a nand, you know, a kind of pot. So that nand word, and then again, then after printing with you know, resist paste, then it is again dyed with indigo. So in indigo is pond is just like nand. So multiple use of you know, pond or nand in the process, it becomes Nandana block printing technique. Then it was limited to tribal place and tribal customers only. In recent, you know, if I got the recent history that it was limited to the tribal place and tribal customers, and there were 5 different tribal people who were, you know, different tribes who were using demanded for a particular motif in block printing. They wear only that particular motif which is associated with their tribe. So it was restricted because it was it doesn't go to the urban market. So that was restricted. Next slide. This is the first slide. This is the first design, which is known as Mirchi Butti, which is inspired from a chili. And if you see the color, the design pattern, the first is red color is printed on using alum and with 1 block, and then it is dyed with alizarin, and previously it was dyed with madder. Then second block is used with resist paste made from clay, lime, and gum, and previously beeswax were used, but today this resist paste is used to cover this design, and then it is dyed with indigo. Previously it was dyed 7 to 8 times in indigo, but today 2 to 3 times it is dyed. And then it is again washed, and again it is printed with the third block covering that red and white portion you are seeing. and then again it is dyed with pomegranate peel to get background a dark green and yellow color, and at the end we got four colors: red, white, yellow, and green. And second, this Champakali Booty, it is again inspired from nature. And uh, uh, third is Amba Buta. It is again inspired from nature, from motif. I know mango bud. And then this is a Jalam Buta. And the interesting story I came to know about from a researcher, that he shared the information that Jalam Buta is basically designed by a Rathwa, Jalam Singh, in Kathiwala. So because of his design, he invented this design. It becomes a Jalam Buta. It is known as Jalam Buta. And this is the fifth design. It is again a very interesting design. It is basically, you can see the floral motif in this, but it is inspired from a love story of Dhola and Maru, which is even today, called by the different story narratives in Rajasthan. So just like Hir Ranjha and Romeo and Juliet, this was the love story in between Dhola and Maru. So this is all about block printing, traditional block printing techniques. Now I will talk about the traditions which are alive today. They are all traditional block printing. They are also using all traditional techniques, but somehow the natural dyes are not used in that, but synthetic dyes and few natural dyes extract were using, but mostly they are now penetrated with the synthetic dyes in the process. The most, in Madhya Pradesh, if you have heard about the Bagh print, which is very quite famous block printing, but Bagh is a geographical place, but actually it is a Shahi beggar print. Shahi means for black color and beggar is for red color. And then Nandana print, Tarapur print, Dabu print, all these three techniques are practiced in Tarapur village in Madhya Pradesh. In Gujarat, Ajrak print, Bela printing, and Gamti print is practiced. Ajrak is more famous. Bela is now only one or two block printers left, and Bela is nothing. It is a kind of Shahi beggar print, but they have a motif like wine, and it is quite requires a completely different dexterity to print it. So it is known as Bela printing. And Gamti printing is all the designs are inspired from a rural life. So this is known as Gamti print. But in process, it is similar to Ajrak, but indigo is not much used in this block printing technique. Then if we talk about Rajasthan, then there are Ajrak print in Badmer, Shahi beggar print, that is Bagru print, is quite famous among the people. Dabu print is again practiced in Bagru, it is quite famous. And Balotra print is a place of called Balotra, which is having a very unique block printing technique. They use very traditional and different designs and motifs they use. So it is having its own name as a Balotra print. And apart from this, Akola print, Akola is a village near Chittod, Akola, Udaipur, Kala Dera, all these places are still practicing traditional block printing techniques. Then Andhra Pradesh, we already discussed about Machilipatnam and Pedana. And what are the natural dyes we are still trying to, recreate, which were mentioned, which were used by our ancestors, which our, dyers in the past. So what we are using today to get red and maroon shade, we are using madder and madder tinctoria, which is a variety of European madder. And shades of yellow we get from pomegranate peel, marigold flower, Himalayan rhubarb, daru haldi, and parijat flowers. And orange shade we get from flames of the forest, Indian madder, bixa seeds, and kampilka, that is Mallotus philippinensis. And the pink shade we get from madder tinctoria, that is European madder. And blue we get from Indigofera tinctoria. And brown we get from eucalyptus bark, catechu, and keeper. And reddish brown we get from red sandalwood and Arjuna, and rest we all are still we are in the process to get news from the natural dyes that are mentioned in our scriptures and by our sisters. This is all from me. Any questions? And it's all over to now Shefali Didi.
Hello. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Trinity, just close the screen so that I can see everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pushpamitra. That was an amazing presentation and it was so methodical. And I remember in our last conversation with you, you had said that during your research on natural dyes and block printing, that it was very sad that all the documentation that we have of many crafts today are done by people who are not of Indian origin. And as Pusha's presentation must have shown you, that we have such a wealth of arts and crafts available here. Why can't we take up the responsibility of documenting it ourselves rather than getting somebody from outside India to come and tell our stories and finally appropriate it and build brands like Fab India and Anokhi? You know, why can't we do that? I request all of you to follow Pushpamitra on his Instagram handle, EcoFab, and even on Facebook to know more about the experiments that he is doing continuously in natural dyes. And it's really a revelation to see him try and revive all the old methods, all the old blocks, and make sure that there is somewhere a Suvarna Madhya between our traditional knowledge and contemporary motive. Thanks a lot, Pushpamitra, for being here. It was an extremely informative, well-researched presentation. To all those who are asking whether this presentation is being recorded and whether the recording will be available, yes, there will be a recording. It will be available on the YouTube channel of Indic Academy, and it will be uploaded in a couple of days. I will share the link on my Facebook profile as well as in my Twitter account, and you can see it from there. And once again, I thank Pushpamitra for doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you, Didi.
Pretty wonderful.
Thank you all.
When I talked about this webinar and when Harikiran Ji, the founder of Indic Academy, actually asked me to curate this, I was very clear that we are going to talk about our glorious past, yes, our techniques, our knowledge that we have, but we are not just going to stop there, because the beauty of the Indian textile tradition is that we are probably one of the only countries in the world where this tradition has been living for more than 4,500 years. The kind of ikat fabrics that you see on the cloth of the Padmapani Buddha of Ajanta, which was painted somewhere around 2nd century CE, you can still see the same pattern, Pasapalli ikat pattern, being woven in Odisha today using pretty much the same techniques. The trefoil motif that you see on the shawl of the priest king statuette that was found and that lies in a museum in Pakistan right now, we have all seen the pictures of it. That block printed pattern of three, like a bilavafala, like a leaf with 3 points to it, that block is still being made. It is still being used in India in many of the block printing techniques. So that is a continuous living tradition of more than 4,500 to 5,000 years that exists in India. We have a wealth of information, we have a wealth of knowledge, and it has survived even though we have faced so much. We have faced Islamic invasions, we have faced burning of our libraries, as Pushpamitra talked about. We have lost our knowledge. We have faced the British colonization, where they tried to destroy our traditional knowledge. They tried to destroy our arts and craft, and they bought our raw material for cheap and took it to England, and they made machine-made cloth and they sent it back. And we all know that Gandhiji used khadi as a means to fight against this. But the point is, our knowledge has still survived, it has thrived, and till today, you have weaving clusters from the northeast to Odisha to Karnataka to Tamil Nadu to Maharashtra, where the traditional knowledge is being used to weave gorgeous clothing. And do you know that handwoven textiles are the second largest sector that provides employment in India after agriculture? And most of the weavers that we have today, they actually live not in urban centers, they live in cities, they live in villages, they live in small towns, and they work from home. So this so-called work-life balance that we talk about a lot these days, and work from home in the present COVID environment, it is what the weavers have been doing always. They've been working from home.
Absolutely.
And they've been having a work-life balance. I'll narrate a small story here. I was in Odisha in Sambalpur, and I was at the house of a national award winning couple, Bhagavana Meher and his wife. They live in Barpali near Sambalpur. And when we went there to see how the cloth was being woven, it was very cute because both of them were taking turns and they were also being hospitable hosts. So Bhagavanaji went out and he got us tea while his wife was sitting at the loom. Then she went to look at something on the chula. Then their grandson came and he was playing near the loom and she was looking after him while she was doing the bandha. And this sort of a thing, it's so beautiful to see because work and life are so tightly woven together. Again, the same analogy which Sonalji has used, which Sucheta Paranspeji has used about how weaving is an integral part of our lives, how it used to be an integral part of our lifestyle. So now we've talked about the past. Both Sonalji and Sucheta ji have talked to us about the tradition of Indian textiles and how it is closely interwoven with spirituality and how it has continued. Pushyamitra has told us about how natural dyes have survived in India and how people are still using them. But now I want to talk to you about what lies next. What is the path ahead? Let's think of the future. We cannot always remain in the past. We have to also think about how we can carry forward this tradition in the future and how we can capitalize on our traditional knowledge and convert it into a revival enterprise, convert it into an enterprise which basically capitalizes on the traditional knowledge, but builds upon it and produces something that is relevant to today's times, today's techniques, but at the same time has not broken its link with the past, with our traditional knowledge. So that is where our next speaker comes into picture.